Ellie here from the Dark Imp, helping parents reclaim family time by playing board games together. Now, at some point in your journey as a board game playing family, you may find that one of your family wishes to start designing board games themselves or shows some interest in it. But you might not know where to start to support this. So in this video, I'm going to give you a few tips and some ideas about where you can start. The easiest place to start is with what you've actually got in the house already. So look at the games you've got. Let's say you've got, this is Pictionary. Lots of families have Pictionary. In Pictionary there's a board. Oh, you could use this board for other things. So you could start with components. You could start with a board from one game and components from a different game and try and play the two things together. So what if you started with this board from Pictionary and the letters, the letter tiles from Upwards? What would happen? What kind of game would that be? Or, let's put these away. What if you started with the, let's just throw everything on the floor. What if you started with the cards from Pictionary and the board from Upwards, so that you're putting the cards from Pictionary on your board and you can see them but nobody else can see them? What kind of game would that create? So start by taking components of one game and trying to put them on the board of another, or vice versa. Or maybe just taking the cards from one game and seeing what other game you can create for them. Or maybe writing your own new cards for a game. So there's some beautiful components, like, for example, look, this is from a game called Illimat. Illimat, let's get rid of Pictionary. Illimat comes with this board here. It's lovely because it's a scarf or something. And it's quite abstract. And there's so many different things you could use this for. This is used, it's a card game. The cards are also beautiful. You've got different suits. So these stars, they're quite pretty, aren't they? You've got suns, and you've got, so it's sort of seasons of the year, mainly the cards are spring, summer, autumn and winter. And then there are the star cards, which are slightly different. But they're just like a pack of playing cards. You know, you have the Knight of Stars, but there are 5 suits. So what could you do with a 5-suited deck? What could you do with the board like this? It doesn't have to be used for cards. It could be used for anything. It could be used for, put dice in different places. There are all sorts of things you could do with it. Or you could take this idea of a game, a board on a piece of fabric and create your own. In fact, it's one of the easiest ways to create your own new board. And I've done this myself. This is a game, not a very good game, but it's got some good stuff in it. I think I might need to come back to this game. I've abandoned this game. It's called Suits You. It uses cards and dice, normal playing cards and dice, and I created this glorious and exciting board for it, where there's a big pit in the middle, the dice happen in the middle and the cards happen around the outside, and there's room for each of the 4 players to put their own stakes and play cards on it. It doesn't work yet, but I might actually bring this out again because I think there's something, I think I can do something with it to make it much more exciting. But this is just a piece of muslin or calico that I found in the cupboard, and I thought, oh, that's the best way to make a huge game board. Sharpie and calico. Brilliant. Now look, also there might be some games that you really don't use. Well, you just get rid of, just strip them for pieces. So this is my first Monopoly. I think someone must have bought it for us. We did play it a few times when the kids are really small, but it's got some nice houses in it, the Monopoly houses. I've used them in prototypes that I've created, and these quite nice little cars. So I use them. Oh, and these are, I think these are from Coppet. And I've used these in a fraction game, which also hasn't come out of anything yet. But maybe it will. So here's some other ideas. Let's see. There's a section on this in my book, The Board Game Family. So here are some ideas. Why don't you try and take a game that you've already got and create a cooperative version or a cooperative mode for a for a game that is currently competitive, or swap it round. Make a competitive mode for a game that's currently cooperative. So how could you play Pandemic as a competitive game? There's a challenge for you. You could make a game expansion to a game that you've already got. So how would you extend Quirkle, for example? What would you do to Quirkle to make it, just to extend it a little bit? So you might add something to this game. It's still the same game, but you might add something to it. You might, I don't know what you'd do with it. You might create some new tiles, or you might change the meanings of some of the tiles. Whenever you place a purple one, this happens. So create an expansion to a game that you've already got. Extend it in some way. Or you could create some new cards or resource types to a game. So in fact, that's one of the first things I ever did. We had, and that's my first game design experience, was creating a supersized Happy Families set. If you've played Happy Families, it's the mum, the dad, the daughter, the son. It's a very traditional setup. But not so in our extended Happy Families versions, which had step uncles and second cousins 3 times removed. And each family had about 25 characters in it. And there were about 25 different families. So it's the most enormous deck of cards. And it was really good fun to play. In my mind as a 9-year-old anyway. Maybe my parents had a different opinion of it. But it made me feel excited that I created something that could then be played. I also created, and I've written a blog about this, I'll put it in the notes below, a game that we used to play a lot as a child was the Great Game of Britain, and I made my sister and I made extra cards for that. It was one of the things that we did. So you can start by making new cards for existing games. Or you could just adapt a mechanism in an existing game to do something different. For example, this is maybe not the, well, for example, you could swap the Snakes and Ladders around in Snakes and Ladders. Not that I'm suggesting that Snakes and Ladders is a good game. But you can extend Snakes and Ladders and make it into a good game by doing all sorts of things. Extend the routes off to the side. When it snakes around, the track snakes around, just go off to the side and do some sub-game and come back on maybe at a different point. You can pimp these games up, for want of a better expression, and make them into something much more interesting. So you could take a totally luck-based game and add some strategy to it. Now, one of the things that really inspires me is taking bits from other games. So, in fact, the first proper game I made, I hesitate to say proper game because it's not. Nobody's really played. Like my family have played it, and a few of my friends have played it, but I haven't taken it out to a wider audience. It's called Gobby Dice, and I use the dice that come within. Now, I think it's called Zip It. It's a game that's made by the same people as Bananagrams. So there are these great letter dice, and you roll them and you make words. That's pretty much how it works. And the same happens in mine, but you can manipulate the dice and you're making different kinds of words. So I was taking a component that already exists and just changing it slightly into a new game. That's Gobby Dice. But one of the really nice things, if you've got somebody in your family that's quite interested in game design or is showing some signs of doing that, create them a little game design kit. So you can buy really easily, I get them in quite big packs, but you don't have to buy them in big packs, blank playing cards. So these are wonderful things. They are coated, so they're, they move nicely against each other, which is the reason why you can't, it's not very easy to just use pieces of paper, but these are cheap. So buy some blank playing cards. You can write on them, you can draw on them. They're blank on both sides. That would be a nice thing to have in a game kit. I've got, you have to have dice. Lots of different dice. So here I've got, well, I've got different, I mean, this is about a tenth or less of my dice collection, but I've got different colours of normal dice, and sometimes I use different colours within the same game. Like, for example, in Gang Shun Clever, which is a really good roll and write game, they use 6 different coloured dice. Then I've got, I've got this one's a D8. So these normal ones are D6s, 6-sided dice. This has got 8 sides, so it's called a D8. If you're looking for these different kinds of dice, then the best way to search for them is by D and then the number of sides they've got. So this is a D30. It goes up to 30 sides. And you can get D100s as well. This one's quite nice. It's a D10, but it's the tens instead of the units. So it goes 70, 80, 90. It's got those tens on it. I've got this one, which is it's also a D10, but this one's got shapes on it, shapes in different colours. I've got a D12, I've got quite a few of them. And then these are quite nice, they are D6s inside of other D6s. Look, how cool is that? And this one's got a D12 inside another D12. Really, I haven't met anyone that doesn't like dice. I was quite pleased when I found this. This is a D3. And it's quite hard to get D3s, but these are quite good. They just have the number at the top, so you roll it and then whatever number is at the pinch at the top, that's the number that's been rolled. You have these sorts of things, dice like this, blank playing cards, components from other games. They inspire creativity. You just start playing around with them and you see what happens. You never know what you're going to end up with, some sort of game. Sometimes I go into craft shops and I buy stuff that isn't necessarily game related, but could be. So, for example, I bought all these different coloured lollipops. I think they're great. I really need to make a game with these. I can just see, some sort of colourful rainbow stock exchange where you're trading lollipops. It'd be brilliant. And buttons. I actually have buttons in quite a lot of my games. So these ones are, they're just wooden buttons, but I found them, I don't know, in some craft shop or haberdashers. And they're really pretty. And there's quite a lot of different designs, and they're in different colours, and they inspire me. And then you can get boxes of resource cubes. Damn, they're on the table. And then you can get boxes of resource cubes, really quite cheaply, all different colours, and they're absolutely, but you want a game that requires you having commodities in them. Well, here are your wheat and your peppers and your, your carrots. Are they commodities? They're obviously vegetable. Commodities, wheat's a commodity. You might want your coal and your wood. You could use your money from the set of Monopoly you probably have in the cupboard, but you can also get these quite easily, or just get them out of other games. Paper money is quite useful in a board game pack. We have these giant poker cards, which are, they're only red. They're just chips, really. They're just giant poker chips in card. Now these would be useful to use to create circular cards, or indeed to use to bet with in a betting game. So have a look around, see what you've got, create some sort of lovely pack with a few, you know, dice and a few blank playing cards and some giant poker chips maybe, and some bits from other games, and create a sort of board game design starter kit. Let me know how you get on.